Hello and welcome back everybody to the Foodbuild factory, where today we're going to take a look at the Enclave soldier. That's the demonite monstrosity you can see on screen right now. And let's get right into it. So, first and foremost, the build is going to be a heavy gunner in power armor that is using an anti-armor, Vats hit chance, plasma caster. So, it's pretty straightforward in terms of legendary effects, as there's not exactly a build made around it, so we're not using bloodied or junkies or anything like that. We're just using fairly generic anti-armor effect. The Vats hit chance is definitely a great favor, simply because we don't have to spec all that much into perception in order to gain some Vats accuracy. But that being said, the build should still work very well without the Vats hit chance. So, what we're going to do here is we're going to kill some robots in the first place. Then we're going to move on over the street in order to kill some super mutants, and on the rest of our way we're probably gonna encounter Scorch Beasts, some Scorch and ghouls, maybe even Deathclaw. Well, we're going to see. So, as you can see here on screen right now, we're not making all that much use out of criticals. We could spec into it, but this is not the focus of the build. This build is using Vats simply because the plasma caster works quite well with it, but we're pretty straightforward. The gameplay is pretty simple. You're just pressing the Vats button and shoot some stuff. So it's powerful enough so you can afford that, even if you're going against higher level enemies, or let's say Scorch Beast, Sheep Squatch and the like. Without the use of chems or anything, you can pretty easily deal with, well, pretty much anything the Wasteland throws at you. Even if you're going to go against Earl or the Scorch Beast Queen, well, you're not going to solo them with this build, quite obviously, but you shouldn't have all that much problem to be a helpful part of the event. That being said, as for the aesthetics, yet again the build is straightforward. So what do we know about the Enclave? Well, they rock up in XO1 power armor. I decided to go without any skin on it. The only thing that I did was that I put the Atomic Onslaught skin on the helmet, simply to give it a bit of touches, and I added the red headlamp, as you probably already noticed by now. But other than that, it's just simple XO1 power armor. Only mods that I do have are the Tesla mods. These are purely for role-playing reasons, so we don't need them and they don't benefit us all that much. You'd be better off with something like emergency protocols. I actively try to avoid a jetpack, simply because whenever people don't play Bloody, they usually always use a jetpack, but as it's something that we didn't really see from all the games, the Enclave never used them, and so it didn't feel quite fitting. So I do enjoy the jetpacks, don't get me wrong, but as for this old school Fallout Enclave vibes, I want it to be this slow-moving tank, even though we do have some perks that make us a bit faster, like Marsupial obviously. But overall, it's not a build where you sprint around all the time. It's not a build where you fly everywhere. It's a pretty straightforward heavy gunner tank. Yeah, here we have those teleporting mole rats that can get up on floors somehow, on roofs. As you can see here, the range is great on the build, so if you're going for range shots, you might need 1 or 2 shots instead of 1, but it doesn't really matter all that much. The ammo is relatively easy to come by. I do know some people have problems getting a lot of plasma cartridges. What you can do is that you could... this is one of the weapons where priming it could really be worth it. So when you're making prime ammo, ultrasight cartridges, you craft like 120 or something with each time you're crafting them. So this might be a good idea, but even then, as I said, in my personal opinion, I didn't feel like it's all that hard to maintain ammo for it. I mean, after all, you're not burning through it all that fast. I mean, you have a semi-automatic weapon, so it's not that big of a problem. And on the side note, we do have a side weapon. So usually when you think about side weapons, you think about something like a handgun or maybe a shotgun or something, but well, you're not some wasteland scum or anything. You're part of the Enclave, and that's why this heavy thing here is your sidearm. It's something some of you might never have seen before. It's a Gatling plasma with the flamer barrel attachment. So it's called a beam splitter on the Gatling plasma. And the reason why I said you probably never seen that is you most definitely have seen it, but most of the times people use this is on legacy plasmas. So you know, when they spray these explosive bullets all over the place, that's this mod here. But if you do it on a non-explosive one, on a standard legendary flamer, Gatling plasma, it's turning it into this here flamer thing. So what do we use this for? Well, first and foremost, the ammo is really plentiful. It's very easy to come by in large quantities, and you have like 250 shots with each plasma core that you're loading in. And this one here is a Vampire's Flamer one, Vampire's faster fire rate one. So what this means is we're going to use it whenever we're facing easier targets like these Scorched here, or where it shines is when you're going against ghouls, for example. So as you can see here, the damage isn't all that great, but you still have quite respectable DPS, simply because you're having a magazine with 250 rounds in it and you're pretty fast firing. And the best thing about it, as it is a Vampire's faster fire rate one, you're never going to die as long as you can shoot it. So the only thing that probably can outdamage you is if some enemies stack damage over time on you, but I think that even isn't that big of a problem. So I think really the only real enemy when you're using this would be the Sheepsquatch Imposter. So if his laser beam hits you, this might not be enough unless you put in some extra survivability perks. But other than that, there's nothing we have to worry about all that much. And as I said earlier, ammo is plentiful, so we can waste it, it's no problem at all. I feel like when you're using sustained fire, some of the hits don't register that well. So you see that when you're going against single targets and using it with these slower or tinier bursts, let's say, that the weapon seems to deal more damage than when you're really using it under sustained fire. So that's something to might consider, but overall that's not the point. What we're using this weapon for is to, for example, yeah, pretty much reason situations like this. So we know there's a lot of enemies around and we don't have the time to focus on single ones. Well, in that case we can easily use that weapon until the bigger crowd is gone, and then we can use our focus to take down the heavier targets. So as you can see here, even though we were at quite a respectful range and only got our occasional hits in, we're doing plenty of damage. So as I always say, it's obviously not comparable to meta builds or something. With a good build, it's fairly easy to take down Scorch Beast in a few seconds. So everything that takes longer than 30 seconds is probably considered a bad time for most advanced players. but I think it isn't a problem. Like, this was neither... Oh yeah, this could be interesting. This was neither all that much ammo consuming, nor was it all that time consuming, so I think you get the point. So here you see the sheep squatch, pretty much, I guess, the tankiest enemy you can encounter in the wild. I couldn't come up with something from top of my head that's not an event boss or something. So sheep squatch is really, if you can take them down in a few seconds, that's good. Even with a stealth commando build, it can take a few seconds, so that means something. If you want here, in order to spare some ammo, you could already also go over to your Vampire's Flamer. And as you can see here, we're doing not the best damage, but on the other hand, he can damage us at all too. So another great thing is we can focus on the legs, cripple him a bit, and now he's pretty much unable to move. We can get back to our plasma caster after reloaded and go on, damage his head. So it's a bit boring to watch here, but trust me, if you play, it doesn't feel that long. So here is something where we really can make use of the criticals, but overall we're nearly done. I think you get the point here. So we're dealing fast with everything up to super mutants. Anything else is still a little bit of a challenge, but not as much of a challenge in terms of us having to fear death. It's rather a challenge in terms of doing it in better timing. So depends on how you're going to play the game. If you want to, you can significantly shorten the time period here with some psychotats or something like that. But it's up to you. It really don't matter that much. So one thing to say is there's two perks I would have loved to max out, but it would have taken me quite some time from now on, so it would have been 4 level ups, and the difference, especially for you in the video, would be minimal. I can take that, I can talk about that right now actually. It is concentrated fire and glow sight. So we wanted to have like 6 perception and wanted to fill those with some meaningful perks. 6 perception simply because it's combined with our Vats hit chance, as I said earlier. These 6 perception make it so we can successfully hit heads over a range of like up to mid-range, I'd say. That's about the effective range of this weapon. So was this an effective 180 or is he still alive? Oh, there he is. Man, I thought I did something cool on the video and nope. Anyways, back to the topic. What was I talking about? Yeah, exactly. We do have some generic perks in there at the moment. So I have 1 rank of concentrated fire and 2 ranks of glow sight at the moment. I will say it again when I get over the build in the latter half of the video, but yeah, in an ideal world we would have liked to have rank 3 of both of them instead of what we have now. But as for the rest, the build is pretty easy. In my opinion, the best thing about the build is that it's pretty much not depending on RNG. So at least there's not a lot of builds that rely on less RNG than this one. So that's something very great for casual players, I'd say. So the whole equipment, meaning the power armor, is something you don't need any RNG at all for. So you can just get it by doing quests, and so I guess if you're level 40 or something, 40 is the lowest level you can craft it in my opinion, as far as I remember, but that doesn't really matter. And the weapon, well, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's RNG involved, but when you finish the main quest line, you can get the plans for this weapon, and after that you just need to get legendary modules from the purveyor. So you need to kill some legendary enemies, but it doesn't matter what they drop, so you just need to kill some legendary enemies, and every day you can craft another plasma caster with some random effects. And as we are using something very generic here, saying anti-armor, not junkies or bloodied or instigating or something, that means that, well, you can be effective with pretty much every role you can come up with. So there's not a non-legendary plasma caster out there, but as long as it's not nocturnal or stalkers, maybe would be a bit of a letdown. But even something like hunters or something, a standard plasma caster would do the job very well. So that's a nice thing. Other mentions, what I mentioned was instigating. That would be a cool idea, but I would definitely try to get another one. So maybe a combination of an instigating and a furious one would be cool. So you use an instigating one to open the fight and then a furious one to go on. But in terms of, well, straight overall damage, anti-armor is pretty solid. So especially when the new damage multipliers, or the way damage multipliers are counted, is implemented, anti-armor will do fairly well. So it's going to be just a little bit worse than anti-armor, and you don't have any drawbacks. So you just need the right weapon, and you don't need any perk to make it work. You don't need any addictions or anything. It's just a pretty solid overall boost to your damage, even though it's not exactly a boost to your damage. But well, the only enemies where you don't have a benefit from it are non-armored enemies, and those are generally the weaker ones anyway, so you don't need any buff to kill them. So whenever you're facing a higher tier enemy, those are usually ones that are armored. Well, I'm sorry, Mr. Robot here, but wait, I can't kill them. Alright, can I kill the robot? Yes. Can I now kill the... strange. Well, anyway, where we... Man, I completely lost the point. Well, I'm sure it wasn't important anyway, so... I mean, none of this is... It's just a generic video, so none of it is important, but... Yeah, you get the point. Well, anyways... You can see here, the weapon does work in free aim, but it's not very consistent. So even on stationary targets, you have to live with missing a shot here and there. It's just something that happens and doesn't have to do with your skill necessarily. I mean, you can obviously just shoot badly, but even if you're doing everything right, let's say here, well, this worked on occasion, but the bullets or the projectiles, they just sway around. Okay, it works better now than I'm talking about it for some reason. You just have to believe me, it can be worse. Sometimes the projectiles go anywhere. Yeah, like this one. Like this one. Like this one. Like this one. Okay. Yeah, sometimes it seems to be a bit off. Like the crosshair seems to not match all that well. Finally. So yeah, okay, we climb the mountain here. We will then jump down, kill the Deathclaw at the relay station, and I think then we're going to go over the video. There's not a lot I have to talk about over in terms of equipment. I already told you pretty much everything about it. I will just show you really quickly that indeed we are using the weapon and armor and I said, but I'm not going to talk all that much about it. It's more going to be a talk about the perks, and even that is there's not a big twist to this character. I know this might be a bit boring, but given that tomorrow the new update, patch 22, will come out, I just wanted to do something very simple where I feel like I can reasonably say this is going to behave about the same after the patch. There won't be a big difference, so you can probably use this very well. If you guys are interested, I can show off that build after the patch, so maybe that might be a fun idea, I don't know. But anyways, the more wacky characters are coming. I just wanted to wait a bit for the new update to come around. Also because legendary perks might make things a bit interesting. I feel like I do have a few ideas so far, but I can't promise anything so far. I really have to test it out. I also have to see how my formula is going to work out in terms of how I'm going to produce my videos. Put it simply, I'm obviously having a lot of spare perk cards on most of my characters, so I can swap builds pretty easily. I just have to, in the most cases, I just have to swap some perk cards in and out, and sorry, I just have to use some special points in order to reallocate my special, and have most of the perks I want to use already. So I just have to use like 2 or 3 points in order to fine-tune the build in the end. But given that I'm using access perks in order to buy my legendary perks, I'm not sure how quickly I'm going to get videos done. So that's something I'm thinking about at the moment, but it obviously doesn't have to concern you. I'm going to find a solution here. But, well, that's about it. Taking a look at our character, and then we're going to take a look at our perks. So here you can see him in a bit more of a daylight. Pretty straightforward. I like the silver from the armor, the plasma caster. Obviously the devs did a great job with it. It looks great. I love it. Also, it feels very satisfying to use. And I feel like I can't recall if the Enclave in older games really had red headlamps on their XO1, but I feel like they're just a perfect fit. I ran with the purple ones, and they were also really cool, but this is just great. I love it. Well, anyways, on to the perks. So, not surprising, 15 strength here. We could go lower, we don't need it necessarily, but what we need is Master Heavy Gunner, and Expert Heavy Gunner. We're using bare arms here because, well, both of the weapons combined, so talking about the Plasma Caster and the Plasma Flamer, they do weigh quite a lot, so it's a good choice. But as always, these carry weight perks here, Bandolier and bare arms, use whatever you feel fit. In a perfect world, we do have 1 rank of lock and load. 3 ranks would obviously not be a bad idea. You don't have the biggest magazine size on the Plasma Caster, and the reload takes quite some time, so having lock and load 3 would probably be a nice idea. You're not using any ballistic ammo, so Bandolier isn't necessary at all unless you have ammo for other builds on your character. On to Perception, this is what I meant earlier. We currently have 1 rank of Picklock and 2 ranks of Grenadier. Well, these were the only ones I had on my character that I could use. I mean, you can see it here. We have some ranks of Butcher's Bounty, Expert Rifleman and such, and none of this really had any benefit to us, so Grenadier and Picklock were the only ones that did have a benefit. And as I said, 3 ranks of Glow Sight, 3 ranks of Concentrated Fire, that would be ideal. I didn't bother to wait for the character to show off until those perks are implemented, simply because you wouldn't have seen a big change. So it's just another few percent of damage to glowing enemies and a bigger increase in accuracy in Vats. So yeah, that's it. Endurance, it's at 6, which is well, fairly low, but combined with a high health build and the power armor we're using, this is more than enough. You saw it in the video of. Furthermore, we do have a vampire's faster fire rate, plasma flamer, which heals us if we're going to get in trouble. Rank 3 of fireproof. Slow metabolizer is just there because, well, nothing you basically need here. So fireproof is a good idea. You don't even need that one, but what else should you take? Well, you could improve on your red resistance even though you're already in power armor, but things like photosynthetic or rejuvenated, it really depends. I just wanted to have some endurance, so fireproof I really recommend, but other than that, use whatever you like. You can even go with lower endurance, it shouldn't be a problem at all. Onto charisma, I do use Lone Wanderer here, you know the thrill by now. If you're running in a team, you know you can use something else. Inspirational is always a good pick for extra XP, but I wouldn't recommend bodyguards, especially, but things like Tenderizer and stuff, you get the thrill. This one was designed to be a solo character, so Lone Wanderer was a perfect fit. Onto intelligence. This one is one where we do have some more perks we need, so batteries included and stabilized. Batteries included, this is one of the few characters where I really recommend it and not just have it because I need it. So every single one of our weapons needs needs energy ammo, which can be quite heavy, but also we do carry as much fusion cores as possible for our power armor. Excuse me. So especially the plasma cores and the fusion cores. Like fusion cores weigh 3 pounds each, plasma cores 1 pound each. You want to have a lot of them as much as possible, so reducing their weight by 90% is pretty much mandatory for this build to work. Stabilized, it's a staple of every heavy gunner that uses power armor. This makes your heavy weapons penetrate armor 45% better when in power armor, and also it increases your hipfire accuracy, or in general accuracy. So this is really noticeable. So especially the armor penetration is something we need here. The accuracy not so much, but trust me when I say there's a difference, and on this occasion I'd say it's worth it. So onto agility. Well, fairly generic here. We do have Marathoner, Adrenaline, and Action Goal. So even though we do use Vats, well, we don't need Gunfu or something. Marathoner, well, it's a pretty standard pick if you want to have some agility but don't know what to use it for. You could swap that out and max out Adrenaline instead. It's up to you. I thought like rank 3 of Adrenaline is probably enough. So where you see Adrenaline work is really when you're going against mobs with your flamer. This can be really handy, and even if not, for example, let's say you run the golf course at the White Spring Resort. The first 4 ghouls, you may need 2 shots, you probably won't, but as the fight goes on, you're definitely one-shotting every enemy, and over time you can probably even focus on the torsos, so you get every shot in. It's always a good pick if you don't know what to take. You can obviously take something else somewhere here. None of these are essential. They're just all nice to have. Same for Action Girl. Combined with the faster AP regen from Lone Wanderer, we do get our AP back fairly quickly, as fast as we burn through it. Onto luck, class freak, well, absolutely not necessary here. You could argue that something like better criticals or such would be worth it. Obviously, bloody mess, you know, you could use it. I just felt like this is one of the characters that didn't need bloody mess, and therefore I wanted to not use it for once. I know I tend to use it very often, but that's because if you're working with weak weapons, you just have to get every single point of damage out, and I feel like this build uses the plasma caster doesn't really need it. So as you saw in the video, we were performing